Right. So CLAT is quite simple to prepare for. It's not as still not as competitive as many other entrance exams such as IIT, JEE, and all that. It requires it is mostly an aptitude based test, and what you really need to do is have a good command over English. You should be aware of general knowledge, and you should read newspapers and watch TV, and if you're aware about what is going on, it really helps to get through this test. And also you need to have a good logical reasoning ability. If you are good at deductive reasoning, verbal reasoning, and generally your reasoning skills are very good, then you are a perfect candidate for CLAT, and you will probably find preparing for CLAT quite easy if these basic skills are already there with you.
There will also be some maths questions. So if probably your 8th grade or 9th standard level maths will need some brushing up.
Yes. So let's talk about the subjects which are there. So you have the first thing that you have in a CLAT paper is English. English, the standard of English sometimes is very difficult, sometimes it is quite easy. We have seen that over the past few years of the papers, sometimes the English comprehension was extremely easy, and sometimes it was quite difficult in terms of the standard of language or standard of questions which were there. Generally in English, what you have to prepare for is English comprehension, reading comprehension. Your reading speed matters a lot. Apart from that, they will test your grammar and vocabulary to a certain extent. And if you already have a good, if you are doing well in your school with respect to your English subjects, probably you will find CLAT English quite easy. On the other hand, if you are from a vernacular background, then you might find it slightly difficult. I myself was from a Bengali medium school, and when I was preparing for CLAT, I didn't prepare for CLAT. At that time, there was an NUJS entrance test. When I was preparing for that, I found it to be quite challenging, and it took a lot of time and energy for me to prepare for that standard of English. Anything you want to add on English?
Yeah, I think you've covered the levels of difficulty which people might face.
Yeah.
So we can move on to maybe legal aptitude.
Okay, so apart from English, there's the other subjects that we have. The next one that you usually have is maths. There is the maths portion in CLAT is quite simple. There will be only 20 questions on maths. Now these 20 questions, usually a majority of these questions are extremely easy. There will be a few questions which will be difficult. But difficult in the sense that it might take you more time to crack. And as you will see in an exam like CLAT, managing time is very important. Even if you are not able to answer a few questions, it may not matter if you are able to answer the easy questions. On the other hand, if you waste too much of your time on the difficult questions, solving them, say you spend 5 minutes on a particular question, you will find that you are not being able to attempt certain easy questions towards the end, and that is undesirable. When I wrote the law entrance tests, it was my strategy to answer the easiest question in maths. And if you are not good at maths, do not entirely leave out maths. I have seen many of my students leaving out the entire maths portion because they are afraid of maths, which is very unnecessary in case of CLAT, because as I said, 70-80% questions are extremely easy and you can solve them. Just look at the past year's papers, you will understand the standard of questions that come, and if you prepare for that, you will definitely be able to solve a question in a minute or less than a minute, and in a very less time you can score 70-80% of the entire math section, and that should be your goal, rather than your goal should be only to answer the easy questions correct. Difficult questions, something that will take you more time to answer, or you might get it wrong, then you can just leave them.
I think that should be a general strategy, right? Because each question carries only 1 mark. It's 200 questions and 200 marks. So go for the easy questions first.
Yes. But what happens is, in case of English, for example, you either know it or you don't know it. So it doesn't waste your time. Compare that to a maths problem. You might be spending a lot of time trying to solve it. Then you get an answer and you see it is not matching with any of the options. So then you feel dejected, your time is wasted, and you don't get, even if you are able to correctly solve it in 3 minutes, I will advise you to go against it. And what happens is that if you practice a lot with past year's papers or different kind of mock tests, you will develop a sense that which questions you can answer very quickly,
right,
and which ones takes you time. So that is a very useful ability to tell apart questions which you can answer easily and the ones which takes your time.
So the next subject we can discuss is logical reasoning. Logical reasoning is an important part of the CLAT exam. I think you should do a lot of mock tests, mock papers in order to get, I don't know, just wrap your head around the way you're supposed to think, the way you're supposed to reason for this section of the exam.
Yeah, see, if you are going to be a lawyer, the one asset which is going to be there with you forever and really make a difference is your reasoning skills, right? So in that way, there's a heavy, emphasis on testing your reasoning skills in exams like CLAT and in fact, any other law entrance exam, be it AILET for National Law University Delhi or Symbiosis entrance test. Everywhere you'll have to do well in the logical reasoning section to get in. And one thing you have to remember is that if you want to get through, there are certain things you must crack in an exam, right? Because everyone else who is going to do well will crack those things. And logical reasoning is one of those areas where people will do very well. And usually from my experience at least, I see that the people who do well and gets into good colleges through CLAT, they have excellent abilities to solve these logical reasoning questions. Now, logical reasoning can be divided generally in two parts as far as what comes in CLAT. One is verbal reasoning or critical reasoning, where basically your ability to understand a statement and a particular type of reasoning is tested. You'll be given a statement and asked to deduce another statement from there. And if you can do that, or maybe you'll be given two statements and you have to see if a third statement can be derived from these two statements. And this kind of things are called critical reasoning or verbal reasoning. On the other hand, you have something called analytical reasoning, which is essentially your ability to see patterns in numbers, patterns in logical sequences, your ability to solve puzzles, which basically test your raw reasoning abilities. And these are the two things that you need to be able to solve, and probably you have to score 80%, 90% of all the questions at least to be able to get through. This is logical reasoning.